Man, this episode. I mean, I don't even know. How is everyone doing today, guys? My name is Seco, and this episode, man, I don't think I've had an episode just hit me so many times in the chest like this. I mean, the show up to this point has been incredible, especially this season, and just, man, this episode. Okay, let's actually get into this. So, yeah, this is the Owl House. This is episode 7 of season 2, or episode 26 of the series, Ida's Requiem. And once again, the title pretty much tells you what kind of episode you're gonna get. And oh my god, this episode, I'm sorry, it's just, I knew going into it what it was gonna at least set up. Again, being pretty much the Owl House, and pretty much like I said last week, you know about half of the things that are gonna go down, and then the other half you have no idea what's gonna come of it. So that's exactly what it was this week, because the half that we knew what was gonna happen was that Ida was going to meet an old friend of hers who was gonna recruit her into this rebellion against Belos, as it said on the summary for the episode. So we knew that part of the episode was going to be Ida with this group and possibly rekindling the relationship she had with this old friend of hers. And again, that does happen, but there's also things that happen that we probably weren't expecting or possibly dreading. So yeah, so whole thing starts at the Owl House with Ida and King and Luz. Ida is just hanging out, but she's actually reflecting on how far she's come as being like this surrogate mother, because, you know, she's been taking care of Luz for a few months now, and she's been taking care of King for 8 years. So obviously she's really come to the realization that she has that caring love for this family. And of course, with that, there's something that comes along, and that being King seemingly talking about wanting to leave, as they keep cutting him off at, like, every time he says, like, leave. So Ida kind of thinks that King, after he finds his father, that he'll leave the Owl House. So yeah, and then obviously with Luz wanting to leave, wanting to get back home, so Ida thinks that she'll be left alone, all, you know, with Hootie, who Hootie did something in this episode that I am very mixed about.
It's okay, see? You're safe here.
Fear not, maiden! Hootie, the guardian owl of Gahoot, has protected you once more! Gahoot!
I mean, on one hand, yes, we do need to keep pushing back the Echo Mouse, so that way we can get to the point where we're ready to get the information, to know where to go, to how to get Luz home. But on the other hand, freaking Hootie, man. It was so hard to... okay, yeah, sorry. So in other words, Luz has been occupied with other things as she waits for the Echo Mouse to recover from its fantastic voyage inside Hootie. hopefully we don't get an episode like that. And if we do, then oh boy. But it's so basically what Luz is doing in this episode is she is training for this staff race that's called the Grand Prix, which is basically a race across part of Blazing Isles, or as they said, I think they said the right arm. So like you just fly to this one part of the island and back, and so she's working with King. So that way they can win the race and possibly get an interview, which will be broadcast all across the Isles. That hopefully will grab the attention of King's father, which I was a little mixed about, because if we're thinking about his father in this case, a demon that lived on this uncharted island elsewhere, was he really gonna be on the Isles? I mean, maybe if like it was like the entire demon realm. I mean, that's probably what they're also implying there. I mean, again, we haven't really gotten to see places off the Isles, or maybe it's just the Isles, like kind of like Amphibia. It's just all this one big island. But I don't know. I'm just trying to think in terms of world building, but. So basically, so that's what Luz and King do for the whole episode, while Ida, who is visited or goes, she's obviously coming to terms with the idea that Luz and King are probably going to be leaving her, so she is dreading that, and she goes into town and goes to a pub where she gets some apple blood. I love that that's become a running joke now. And there's even a joke about her tab, like the bartender is like, yeah, maybe I think it's like me every time you come in thinking, hey, maybe she'll actually pay her tab. But Ida doesn't. She leaves because they're Coven guards who take this wild witch away, who doesn't want to join the Coven, and so Ida decides to go out and try and save them. And even though she's powerless, she's still pretty stubborn. So I really got a laugh out of this. She punches one of the guards, and it causes his face to turn around, like do a 180. I mean, I knew Ida could punch, so it still was pretty funny though. And just before the guards could attack Ida, all of a sudden they are caught off guard by these 4 bard witches who start playing music, and as they play music, they are causing the guards to do all these crazy funny things. And the leader of this group is giving a speech about obviously what the Coven system is doing. It's like taking away your freedom, it's limiting your knowledge, your power, all of that. And they're saying, like, the Emperor says it's doing it for unity, but in reality it's doing it to suppress you. And then they announce their name. They are the Bards Against the Throne, or as they call themselves, the Bats, which, cool nickname, I guess. And then, unfortunately for them, they eventually get surrounded by more Coven guards, but Ida's able to bail them out by showing them a way to escape, which is through a manhole cover. So in other words, through the sewers, and they were able to escape and they get away. And then after that, Ida asked if she could join their team, and the leader of their group says that they're not taking any more members, which I kind of found interesting, because obviously if this is a small rebellion, you would obviously want members, but at the same time, maybe it's because it's Ida. But then Ida reveals who the leader of the Bats are, and that is Raine Whispers, who was recently named the head witch of the Bard Coven. So interesting thing there. And this is a pretty cool thing, in my opinion, and that being Raine is a non-binary character. So in other words, gender identification is not a thing for them, because so in other words, yeah, they go they them instead of like he his or she her, so it's they them. And I might slip on that. If I do, sorry about that in advance. But yeah. So Raine is the leader of this small group, and Ida is rather intrigued to see that an old friend of hers is doing this, and so we get this cute little flashback with Raine and Ida, who and seemed a little romantic, and as we see throughout the episode, that they definitely have a few moments of blushing. So, and at this point, blushing automatically means you're in love. So, and I'll admit, this is, I mean, I figured Raine was going to be a very likable character, a very sympathetic character, a character that a lot of people would enjoy, and yeah, I agree. I definitely had fun watching Raine do their thing in this episode. They were just being themselves, but at the same time, they were being a very relatable character in my mind because
I am honored to work with Emperor Belos in preparation for the Day of Unibi. I mean, Unily. Oh no, this is going all wrong. Get me out of here!
Just cut the feed.
I mean, come on, how many people get stage fright like that? I mean, it's nice to know that there's characters like this that are there. And again, you know, it feels so natural, you know, they don't have to straight out say, like, what this character's gender is, who are they? It's like, you could go through this episode and, like, try and figure it out, but no, it's like, Raine Whispers is Raine Whispers. It's, hey, they're rebelling against the Emperor while also being this, like, little mole in the Covens. It's, like, cool little thing. And for Ida, especially, you know, to have her old friend back, which, I guess the only thing I was wondering was, how come they haven't seen each other in a while? I mean, because obviously through their flashbacks, they were close. They had this connection. There was that going on between them. So I guess the real question was, what happens? Like, and even when they, you know, they meet back up, it's like, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time. It's crazy. I missed you. It's like, so, I mean, thinking like, you live in Bonesboro, right? So it's like, wouldn't you, I don't know. I'm thinking too much into this, but Ida basically tells Raine and their team that if they want to actually be a good little rebellion, that they need her help, so they accept her help, and she's able to help them at least complete one successful raid of these wild witches that the Coven rounded up. And again, it's a pretty clever way they do it, because for these barred witches, they have their own unique way of doing magic, and that's playing instruments. Like, Raine has a violoncello. Well, I mean, it's like viola. It's like, I don't know exactly the instrument that they have. I just know that looks like a violin. So yeah. And then even Ida has her own instrument. It's like I don't know what it's called. Please tell me in the comments if anyone knows what it's called. It's like a little guitar. It's not a guitar. I know that. It's not a ukulele. It's too big for the ukulele. I don't know what it's called. I just know Ida uses it, plays it, and she even discovers when she plays it that she can do a little bit of magic. However, it's not exactly good magic, if I guess the best way to describe that, because every time she plays, everything in the vicinity starts to turn to dust, or at least, I don't know, maybe it's like a Thanos snap. I don't know. It's crazy. It's creepy, but it's cool at the same time. And for Ida and Raine, you know, they have some pretty cute moments in this episode. I really like the way they work off each other. Like, even the nicknames they have for each other are pretty cute, and just the voice actors for this, you know, Wendy Malick and Avi Roke, I think is how that's pronounced. I could be totally wrong. I didn't I didn't really have the time to fully look into their pronunciation of the names, so I just know that voice the voice actor for Raine is also non-binary, so that's another cool thing to have. And yeah, yeah, it's cool to see them in this episode be like this. And yeah, so after their successful reign, they move to the next day when Luz and King are in the Grand Prix, and so Luz, being very good with flying on Albert, is able to seemingly dominate the race. However, as we find out later, there is a incident with King, who apparently doesn't take flying very well, and a part of me was a little conflicted about that too. I mean, I'm like, if King is going to throw up, should he be in the back so that way he can just turn around and like dump his head into the forest and just like let it throw like that? Or at the same time, I mean, it's like, yeah, maybe you should have had like a barf bag. I don't know, but just to have King lose them the race because he threw up was very unfortunate. But I mean, the race itself was pretty fun for what it was. You know, it's this little, well, we gotta keep Luz and King occupied for this episode, so what can we have them do? Well, we need King, and we need King's story to go somewhere after Echoes of the Past. So what do? Well, we could have him try and find his father by reaching out to him through the media, the entertainment. So it's like, all right, let's do that. And so yeah, so that's them in this race. But yeah, so Ida at first is there cheering on Luz and King, but then she gets a call from Raine saying that they got word of another raid going on, so she meets up with them to obviously stop the raid. But then they get to the location and they discover that nothing is there and that the whole thing is a setup, and we meet two of the head witches of the 9 covens, the head witch of the Abomination Coven named Darius, and the head of the Beastkeeping Coven named Everwolf. So, I'll say it right now, Darius is definitely the more snarky, sinister of the two from what I got, but at the same time, Everwolf is definitely a very terrifying creature, especially when he goes literal beast mode. And even Darius has this really, just the sheer level of magic he has for abominations is crazy, because he's able to conjure up abomination goop. He doesn't need to conjure up abominations, period. He just conjure up goop to snatch the group. He snatched the main Raine's team, and not only can he just snatch them up at will, he can also teleport them somehow. Like, he's able to teleport them straight to the Conformatorium, which was very terrifying, and also makes me wonder if Amity can do anything on that level yet. And I hope she does, because the next thing that Darius does is turn into literally an abomination himself. It was such a creative design and such a weird thing to look at first, but at the same time, it's also cool and terrifying. And again, it shows the potential that one can have in abomination magic. So I was wondering, yeah, if Amity will get to the point where she can do that. Can she turn into an abomination like that and actually wreak havoc? But with Raine and Ida being hunted, luckily, because Ida was able to conjure up a invisibility, or whip out an invisibility glyph to keep her and Raine out of detection, and so they're able to escape, but they have to come up with a plan to take out Darius and Everwolf, because Raine tells Ida that Emperor Bellos is planning something big about the Day of Unity. They don't know what that is yet. Already screwed that up. Yeah, they don't know what Bellos wants to do on the Day of Unity. All they know is that they need all 9 witches of the covens to conjure up this spell. So whatever this is going to be, I mean, as we saw in Hunting Talisman last week, these medallions or badges they have, they place them down and they create this like thing in the cauldron. So that's probably another thing that has to be. But so Raine and Ida get an idea that maybe they should be, if they want to make sure Bellows can't fulfill his plans, they have to take out Darius and Everwolf. And so they get the idea of playing some music, because Ida showed earlier that if she played, it causes things to start burning up and turning to dust. And so Raine and Ida play what was originally called Raine's Rhapsody, but then Ida later calls it Ida's Requiem, because she figured when she plays the song, that's when the burning, all the dark stuff happens. So, and I'm just gonna say, this is my favorite scene in not only the whole episode, but probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole series of this up to this point. Because the music, the animation, just the colors, everything about this little sequence was breathtaking to watch. I literally replayed it multiple times on YouTube right now. It's such a awesome scene to watch, and I can't wait to see people take that soundtrack and just expand it, like add stuff to it, like. Especially, I hope they add like a real crescendo to the melody, because it is such a nice. It was definitely building up to it in this sequence, but unfortunately they had to cut it short, because as Ida and Raine play it, they see that it's working, because Everwolf and Darius start to turn to dust. But then Raine notices that they and Ida are also turning to dust, and so it seems like this will be a sacrificial move. However, Raine discovers that Ida actually has a family, which I found kind of rather interesting. So Ida, she whips her hair, and a photo of her, Luz and King, flies out, and then Raine sees it, and then they look in confusion, and they say,
"Then we play on."
Ida, do you have kids?
So part of me took that line in a few different directions, one of which was maybe Raine was a little bit heartbroken, because if they thought Ida had kids, maybe that meant Ida found someone else, but at the same time, it was definitely sounded like a little bit of a shock value, because, Raine maybe up to this point thought Ida was just alone, so when they found out that Ida actually had a family, they were having second thoughts about what they were doing in the current moment, and that's exactly what happens. Raine stops the melody and tells Ida that she needs to face this fear that she has, because in the flashback, Ida told Raine that when it comes to facing fear, sometimes you just gotta give them a good punch to the face. And so Ida realizes in that moment, yeah, she can't be running from it, she has to face it. And so Ida and Raine seemingly have this nice moment, but then Raine gets captured by Darius, and even Ida tries to save her, but Raine tells her that she needs to go, that she has to leave them behind. And so Ida, even though she is completely torn about it, because she's in full tears, Raine gets captured, and Darius and Everwolf at first seem like, obviously Darius is definitely more mad at Raine, because he is the more gentleman of the group, the more fancy. So in other words, he doesn't like being in a dark forest that is very, 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 very unsanitized. But for Raine, she sorry, like I said before, slipped up the tongue most of this time, because the thing about Raine going into this, especially after seeing the trailer, everyone was thinking like, oh, this is gonna be, like an old girlfriend of Ida's, but as we found out a few days ago, non-binary. So I'm still getting used to saying they for them, because I spent so long just saying she for them. Ugh, sorry. For Raine, they're captured by Darius and Everwolf, but then Kikimora shows up and Raine thinks, oh, it's just gonna be a petrification ceremony, and for Raine, she kind of makes it sound like that she'll just get out of that. But then Kikimora reveals that Bellows doesn't have time to go find a new head for the Bard Coven, so they activate Raine's Bard glyph, or Bard patch, or whatever, or brand, I should say, their brand, on their wrists, and all of a sudden it just turns into these like red tendrils that covers the entire body, and we don't see what comes of Raine. All we know is that we see their point of view, and we just see the tendrils like covering their eyes, and then it just cuts to black. But of course, that's after Ida goes back to Luz and King, sees that they lost, because as I mentioned before, King threw up, and it seems like that they lost their chance of reaching out to King's dad. But then Ida whips out a scroll and starts streaming, and she even makes a joke how it's all about streaming now. So I think that was a nice little jab at Disney there, as we know it's a no-holds-bar at this point for Dana and crew. I feel like take as many jabs as you want. But yeah, so King gives out his message to his father, and we see people watching it. We see Willow watching it. We see Amity, Edric, and Amara watching it, which I thought was pretty cute. And then we see this mysterious figure who has eyes similar to King, who has a head similar to King. His horns looked a little interesting, and like obviously his attire looked a little interesting, but most likely his dad. But yeah, so that was another nice little moment. But
I am legally changing my name to King Clawthorn! Surprise, Ida! Now we're connected for life, and there's nothing you can do about it!
Is that what you wanted to tell me this whole time?
And if you sign here, it'll be official. Ida, are you okay?
pretty much the beef of this episode was Ida and Raine's relationship, and just, again, there were so many moments in this episode where I just felt a punch here. Like, it was touching, it was depressing, it was pain, as Dana has said this season was gonna be. But this is probably my favorite episode. I mean, of the season, I should probably say. Of the season, this is my favorite episode. I mean, Echoes of the Past was really... I really loved Echoes of the Past. I thought Hunting Palisman last week was a really good episode. Keeping Through the Looking Glass Ruins was another great episode. I mean, the whole season's been great. It's hard to say this season hasn't been great. It's pretty much like, oh, you think this episode is good? Well, the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. It just keeps going. And we have 3 episodes left until, you know, we have our little break. And next week, knocking on Hootie's door. That's gonna get interesting. Especially after what Hootie did in this episode. I mean, I get it was more for comedic terms, but I mean, and probably when we get through the whole show and we look back on this one moment, it'll be like, that was funny. But in the present moment for me, I'm like, Hootie? But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought Raine was a wonderful new character for the Owl House. I really am worried about them because obviously left them on a pretty dreadful note. And I really hope we get to see more of them in terms of them, not like whatever what they just became. I want to see more of Ida and Raine's relationship. There was obviously chemistry between the two. There has to be something there. I really want to know the reason why they might have had a falling out. Again, that wasn't really confirmed or not in this episode. But I'm really excited to see where that goes. So, alright, yeah, that's all I got. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked it, leave a like. If you want to leave a comment, leave a comment. And if you want to subscribe, subscribe. You don't have to. I'm just saying. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Okay, let's just play it one more time.